that I was working with a secret clearance. They immediately put something in my security file. To this day, I don't know what that was, to have me fired from that job. Not that the NSA cared that I was actually, helping, making sure our soldiers in the field weren't coming home in boxes. The NSA didn't care about that. They just wanted to make sure they fired me from that job. So I'm unemployed once again and looking for a job or looking to go back to school and maybe get a PhD and become a college professor. Right now, I'm sort of in flux limbo land right now.
Russ, I chose the boiling frogs as the name of this show for obvious reasons. You also are known to frequently offer the boiling frog analogy when it comes to the state of our nation since 9/11. Now, as a former NSA intelligence analyst and capabilities operations officer specializing in all aspects of our offensive information warfare, can you please tell our listeners why you use the analogy and how do you see the state of our nation today?
Well, I learned the boiling frog analogy, I think, when I was in college from probably a professor or somewhere or another. But it's basically you put a frog in a very, nice environment of water, and the frog swims around. He's very happy. The only problem is the frog's in a big pot of water on a stove, and then all of a sudden someone starts to turn up the volume or the heat on the stove very, very slowly, and the frog swims around happily until the frog doesn't realize what happens to him, and he's frog soup. So it's sort of...
So how does that relate to the state of our nation today?
Well, I think it relates to the frog is the American people right now. The American people are swimming in that pot of water. The temperature is being turned up, and Americans are very happily, spending their time, obsessed with, hours of coverage on Michael Jackson funerals and Paris Hilton and Britney Spears and all kinds of other things.
Hey, don't forget the Octomom and American Idol.
Octomom, American Idol, and all sorts of things of that nature that I think in the long run they really don't mean a whole lot. Especially when the American people are being fried in the process and they don't even realize it. So it's just something that it's sort of, and obviously the press would not be covering these things if the American people didn't, turn the channel from something that's, interesting, like, a coup in Honduras or a civil war in Mogadishu or issues like that, and turn the Octomom on because that's what they care about. So it's, you can't blame the press totally, or, the politicians, because ultimately, you kind of get what you deserve when you don't care who you're putting on the Hill in Washington, D.C.
And Russ, if you'll indulge me for a moment, I have a pet theory here about why the American people have been so passive. And it might surprise you or others to hear this, but I think it is the sophistication of market research. And that, for example, the television networks have done detailed studies on the attitudes of the American public. And they find that people are more interested in the controversy over the legitimacy of the vote for American Idol. They're much more interested in that than whether Ohio in 2004 or Florida in 2000 or even Iran in 2009 were the scenes of hijacked elections. And the networks, the advertisers have such detailed understanding of what makes us tick, what draws us to the tube and makes us stay there and unable to switch away. And so much of it has nothing to do with reality, the true reality, and with the serious problems that we face as a nation.
Well, I guess marketing is part of that, but why is it that the American people find the controversy over whether some silly TV program voting thing was fixed or not, versus something that really mattered, whether a president was put in office and unjustly put there. If I recall, way back when the Greeks tried to start a republic, they had to chalk people's togas to try to get them into a courtroom to try people because people didn't want to perform their duties as citizens. So it's not something that's new. Now, ultimately, we know what happened to Greece, and we know what happened to the Roman Republic after that. So, I kind of wonder, are we headed for the same sort of fate?
Well, that actually brings it to my next question. I just posted a piece on the police state. It's called The Making of a Police State. Aren't we there? So is the water boiling, Ross? Are we there? Because a lot of people say we are getting there. We are on our way to get there. We are getting close, as if there is this clearly defined area. So what do you think? Is the water boiling?
Well, I don't think the water's boiling yet. And the reason I say that is because we're allowed to talk the way we're talking right now, and whatever limited coverage our speak today might get, out there in the airways or on the computer, we're allowed to do that. The water's really going to be boiling when we have this discussion, and the day after we disappear. And all mention of what we've said ends up in a memory hole somewhere that will never see the light of day. So I don't think we're there yet. I think we can save ourselves. I think our Ben Franklin, when he said to the lady, if you choose to protect it, meaning protect your democratic republic, I think we can, but we need to wake up now. And if we don't wake up now, it's not going to be too long. NSA, I said on the TV a couple months ago that NSA doesn't have the capability to tap and listen to everyone's and cover, collect every conversation in the United States. That capability will probably happen within the next 10 to 15 years, that every communication in this country will be able to be collected and cataloged and digitally warehoused. If we don't stop things now, that will be a reality 10 to 15 years from now, and soon after that, we're doomed.
Now, Russ, I watched with great interest your interviews with Keith Olbermann earlier in 2009, in fact, right after the inauguration of the new administration. And it really encouraged me to see the strength that you showed in coming forward and telling us that what you knew was that media representatives, reporters, editors, and others in the industry were targeted. And you described that internally it was characterized as, well, we're walling these people off. They're sacrosanct. The First Amendment and our other laws, including the Fourth Amendment, preclude us from monitoring their conversations and surveilling their emails. But what you described to us was that was a pretext, and that, in fact, a great deal of collection has occurred on media individuals. Talk a little bit about that and the response to it.
Well, I really can't go too much into detail of how that was happening, because I would start to give hints as to what sort of technology was being used, and ultimately, what sort of other things were being targeted. That collection that was happening was just a support element for something that I was working on. So basically, we were saying we're going to make sure these people we're not going to do anything to these folks, and we're going to segment them from my mission that involved information warfare. So when I ultimately found out that information was being collected on those folks, then I went, oh my goodness. And that's when I started very subtly tickling the areas where that was being done, and trying to figure out what was happening with that information. And that's when they figured out that,